of Mark Zuckerberg's obviously incompetent ability to decide what's right and wrong. Okay. Or should he, by the way?
Let me bring Tim in. You've been waiting patiently. Tim, your response.
Free speech is a principle. When we say that Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever platform is silencing free speech, we are not talking about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects multiple rights, of which one of those is free speech. So this constant conflation of a private company isn't violating your First Amendment. I'm not going to bring up the First Amendment. I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go on a platform, I'm going to express my ideas and share news, and if they silence me, they are violating my free speech.
Tim Pool just recently went on Piers Morgan Uncensored and annihilated an entire panel of some woke morons. And it quite literally left Piers Morgan himself speechless. Just watch. Ready? Go.
Have seen it. But Mark Zuckerberg blatantly admitted that both Facebook and the FBI interfered in the 2020 election on the Joe Rogan Experience. And, you know, for all of the news coverage, and to some degree rightfully so over the last 4 years about January 6th, about some of Trump's claims of the election that him and his lawyers were really never able to demonstrate at all. But how about that admission that the FBI came and told Facebook, be prepared for a Russian dump that's coming soon. And then when the laptop came out, you have 50 plus intelligence officers signing on to this letter saying that this is the Russian disinformation. And he admitted to censoring people for that. I mean, this is like blatant election interference by the FBI and one of the biggest tech companies out there. I mean, you know, I would think if you're going to reverse that, it would also come along with like an apology and some admission of what you were a part of. You know, he says he created the site to give people a voice. You robbed your fellow Americans of their voice in a very important, crucial point in American history.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a New York Post columnist at the time that all went down with their exclusive on Hunter Biden's laptop, which turned out to be a completely genuine story, and certainly wasn't Russian disinformation. And the way that all played out was quite extraordinary and pretty terrifying to see that the New York Post.
Well, although, guys, come on, look, tech companies make mistakes the way publishing companies make.
But that wasn't a mistake, Cara, was it? I mean, it wasn't.
Well, you know, no, let me push back. The government.
Hang on, my point.
Who is this wannabe even uglier than Rachel Maddow herself? Like, who is this? She's literally uglier than Rachel Maddow herself. A wannabe Maddow, a wannabe mad cow. What's funny too here, by the way, guys, I'm a huge Dave Smith fan, but you can just see his face. It's written all over his face. He's like, oh my gosh, make it stop.
To the New York Post X account completely.
Yes, they did.
If they didn't take down their true story. I mean, that is the most blatant attack on free speech I've ever seen.
But it's not free speech. It's not a government institution. Companies do that. Disney didn't put out a movie in China because the Chinese.
It doesn't make it right, though, does it?
Of course not. But it's you're equating Facebook. You're equating Facebook or Twitter with the government. It is not a public square.
No, I'm not.
To be very clear, I certainly was not. Listen, I was not equating Facebook and the FBI, and I think it is reasonable to point out that a lot of these big tech companies were under duress really since Donald Trump won in 2016. All the heads were hauled in front of Congress and threatened up and down if they didn't get this misinformation problem under control. But is the claim here that those intelligence officers made a mistake and really thought this was Russian disinformation and then realized it was Hunter Biden's laptop?
Our government should be talking. Go ahead.
Tim, let Cara finish her point, then I'll bring you in, Tim.
The government should constantly be talking to lots of companies because there are disinformation campaigns from Iran, Russia. You can't pretend that China's not all up in our grill. You just can't. You just can't. And there should be discussions between government and companies. They're going to occur. By the way, they've been occurring since the beginning of time, way back when, go watch Oppenheimer. There's discussions happening all the time on all levels between companies. The question is, what is pressure and what is important discussions that these companies, because they are at the nexus of all these information systems, should be having, and what are the guardrails against government overreaching? I am all for stopping government overreach. I did a great interview with Edward Snowden about this issue. Perhaps the way he did it wasn't right, but what the government was doing was wrong. They fixed it. There should be guardrails around these things. The question is how it's done. But what happens is there's a fever dream on the left and a fever dream on the right of what's occurring, and it's a little less nefarious. I think that Facebook, unfortunately, occupies a far too important role in news distribution as a kind of a monopoly. And that's the problem we have going forward. It's a private company that's determining what everybody sees. And they're going to not just make mistakes. We're at the behest of Mark Zuckerberg's obviously incompetent ability to decide what's right and wrong. Or should he, by the way?
Let me bring Tim in. You've been waiting
sorry.
patiently. Tim, your response.
Free speech is a principle. When we say that Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever platform is silencing free speech, we are not talking about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects multiple rights, of which one of those is free speech. So this constant conflation of a private company isn't violating your First Amendment. I'm not going to bring up the First Amendment. I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go on a platform, I'm going to express my ideas and share news, and if they silence me, they are violating my free speech. More importantly, this argument about, you mentioned there's a fever dream on the left and the right. I want to make one thing clear. Mark Zuckerberg coming out and saying that now we're going to have more free speech or whatever it is he's trying to say, this is not a pendulum swing. This is not the weather vane. Certainly, I do believe the man is just bending the knee to whatever power structure he sees. But if we were actually going to see a pendulum swing in the other direction, they would keep the fact-checking program, ban the liberal news outlets, and only allow conservative outlets to fact-check posts on Facebook. When you look at all sides, when you look at ground news, the majority of U.S. fact checkers had a liberal bias, and only one, which was associated with the Daily Caller, was considered to be conservative-leaning. And when numerous outlets on the right made attempts to get access through Pointer to the fact-checking system, they were denied that. So now, once again, what do we see? Real quick, too, another point. Back to the First Amendment issue. I just want to add, the government had backdoors into X and Facebook where we actually got to click the link and go to the login portal for the federal government to go into Facebook to flag posts. And there was an instance where if you said the name Eric Charamella on YouTube or Facebook, your post would be inexplicably deleted. And everybody knew that was happening. And this is Real Clear Politics that it broke the reporting on Eric Charamella. So what we're looking at since Elon took over Twitter and turned it into X, we have consistently seen a dominant liberal or Democrat Party bias on these platforms. And when the problem is, quote unquote, resolved, you get neutrality. There's been no circumstance where we have seen a right bias or a conservative bias or a pendulum swing in the other direction. So Mark Zuckerberg right now is declaring neutrality. He's
absolutely correct here.
Actually swearing fealty or kissing the pinky ring of Trump.
Well, fascinating.
Are you kidding me?
Dean, over to you.
I mean, the idea that what Mark Zuckerberg is doing is part of the plutocracy. It is part of the oligarchy. They're going down there and giving $1 million each to Donald Trump, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos. You have Elon Musk, who's been the biggest oligarch of all. They are bending the knee. They're doing whatever he wants. And I wish that on the left and the right, we could put aside politics and say we need a system where big money is taken out and the power is given back to the people, to us. And then we can fight fairly on the issues without all.
He must be in like the outrage, the raging part of his hormonal cycle. Hormonal in the female sense, by the way. Yeah, he's probably menstruating. He probably has some PMS. Dude, come on, put a tampon in and shut up. By the way, make sure you like today's video, subscribe, leave a comment down below, call it saying PMS, red heart, whatever, to make fun of him. Let's get back to it.
Oligarchs spending millions and millions of dollars to corrupt our elections. And on the right, you don't like George Soros? Okay, let's ban his money as well. I'm fine with that. But Mark Zuckerberg, what he's doing is bending the knee because he is fearful. He is fear. Donald Trump said yesterday, maybe he's afraid because I threatened to put him in jail for his entire life. That's the big to protect our First Amendment. The guy who threatens Mark Zuckerberg with jail for the rest of his life. A guy who threatened ABC and CBS. A man who threatened Donald Trump Saturday Night Live. He wanted the comedy show canceled. So he is not a bastion of free speech. He is a strongman leader, a potential dictator, and they fear him, but they're about making money. So Mark Zuckerberg now is changing these rules and putting Dana White on, Trump's big buddy, on the board at Meta to make Trump happy. Leave him alone so he can make the list goes on. We live in an oligarchy, a plutocracy, to be accurate. And I don't know why on the right you're not angry like I am about the wealthy controlling our collective destiny as a people. Let's get their money out and we can fight over the issues. I'm all for that.
This is the funny thing about what left and right really means. I completely agree. Billionaires, millionaires dumping tons of money to manipulate the is a bad thing. What I'm talking to specifically, when I'm saying kissing the pink ring, if you want to make the argument that they're donating money to his inauguration and things like that, let's have that conversation. But Donald Trump, if this is Mark Zuckerberg trying to placate or please Trump, and he's settling with, I will let people speak, That's Trump accepting neutrality. If Zuckerberg was actually going to try and play this game that we had seen over the past 8 years or longer with Facebook, he'd say, you know what, we're going to bring on 10 new fact checkers, the Daily Wire, Breitbart, National Review, and we're going to give them preference, and we're going to remove PolitiFact and Pointer's authority. But that's not what he's doing. He's saying, you can finally post again, which it's funny because when he basically downranked politics, he nuked his own platform, and it made most podcasters abandon the platform as a place where you couldn't do business anymore. So again, you want to talk about
I don't know
money,
what you guys,
and
I
all
don't know
that, I
what world
agree.
you live in. All my friends are posting about Palestinian issues, about Gaza, the suffering in Gaza and the West Bank. Where my family lives in the West Bank under occupation, our stuff is banned. We get thrown off the platform of Meta, of Facebook, of Instagram. Let's not play games here. These are oligarchs who have a financial motivation for what they're doing. Tim, you know that. Dave knows that. Karen, we all know this. We're on board. What are we going to do about it? We live in a new Gilded Age with a Robert Are we going to rise up with a backlash and have reform? Or are we going to let them control our collective destiny and be their serfs? That's our question. Question.
Well, I think, Dean,
I think that is one point of agreement that we can have, that these people, these big tech oligarchs who own all of these big tech platforms, obviously have their own agenda, and they don't really care about letting people speak. That's why you'll kind of see them changing their tune depending on who's in office. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you made it to the end of the video, comment an orange heart. Helps boost in the algorithm. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.